Ladies and gentlemen, I am Professor Ambassador Abdulla AlAshaal, former Vice or Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and Professor of International Law and Political Science in Cairo. My message to you is, in fact, very critical because Egypt is forwarding a very black future concerning the genocide crime which is perpetrated by Ethiopia since a long time. And unfortunately, the Egyptian government is taking the other side. I mean that it concentrated on the bona fide principle on the part of Ethiopia. But after 5 years of this treatment, I think that Ethiopia proved that it has no bona fide, it has criminal motive, and it wanted to genocide the Egyptian people and that Egypt should disappear from the map. Egypt, as you know, is based totally and absolutely on the Nile. So the Nile is the new game now to fight Egypt. Ethiopia was an instrument in the hands of some other powers so as to tease Egypt and to impact its policies under Nasser regime. But because Nasser had good relations with Ethiopia at that time, so they refrained from going the game till the end. Now, Ethiopia is building what they call Millennium Dam. This Millennium Dam is supposed to generate electricity on commercial basis. And in fact, Ethiopia had large resources of water. It has 9 international rivers. It has about 40 internal rivers. It has also 6 lakes. One of them is fed by 25 rivers. So the total rainfall on Ethiopia is in fact around 240 billion cubic meters. This means that Ethiopia is full of water, but unfortunately the administration or the management of water in Ethiopia is very poor, to the point that Egypt is the victim of this conviction that the government is provocating the Ethiopian people against Egypt, and they have many arguments which in fact justifications, and they proved in fact that Ethiopia is perpetrating and preparing for the crime of genocide since a long time. The means of this genocide is the dam. It has 11 dams on different rivers. 6 of them is on the Blue Nile. The Blue Nile provides Egypt with 85% of its water harvest. So choosing the Blue Nile in particular for the greatest dam, which has a vast about 6,000 megawatt, in addition to the other thousands of megawatt, to reach about 50,000 megawatts. This is the first evidence that Ethiopia is directly and intentionally hitting Egypt in the core. So they changed the course of the Blue Nile, and Egypt didn't do anything. Then they started the building of the dam, and Egypt was away from this. And in fact, Ethiopia was making everything in secret, to the point that in 2011, a journalist, Ethiopian journalist, was imprisoned because she had revealed some secrets about this dam. So Ethiopia didn't respect international law that says that the upstream state should consult and take agreement of the consent of the downstream state. Egypt is unique in 263 international rivers. It is the only and sole downstream state which is depending totally on the Nile. The Nile provides Egypt with 98% of its water needs, and the two remaining percent are derived from the underground water, which is integrally related to the Nile. So, drying the Nile means that Egypt is dying, literally dying, and disappearing from the map. So, this crime, the span of time is very long, but Ethiopia is concentrating since 2013, where the turbulence in the Egyptian society and authority, there was a revolution in Egypt since 2011, and the military council was ruling Egypt since 52 till this moment. So instead of opposing Ethiopia and showing that Egypt has established right in the water, and Ethiopia violated international law, the Egyptian government took the side of lenient diplomacy, hoping that this bilateral ties would mean that Ethiopia would be more humanistic and shouldn't be very harsh on the Egyptian people. But this question should be decided now by law, by international law. We are not taking favor from Ethiopia. The Egyptian people has acquired an historical right, and these rights of Egypt are based on 9 agreements, 3 of which Ethiopia is a part of it. The last one was 1993, when Desalegn, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia at the time, was visiting Egypt, and there was a joint communique between Desalegn and President Mubarak, and they reiterated the confirmation of the Egyptian rights, and Ethiopia should be impeded from making any water works on the high Nile, on the upstream, that make appreciable harm to the downstream state. And it should consult with Egypt, talk with Egypt, and take the consent of Egypt. And this is why the donors who had been volunteering to provide Ethiopia with about $20 billion, they conditioned their offer on the Egyptian government agreement and consent. And unfortunately, the Egyptian government in 2015 thought innocently that Ethiopia has a bona fide intention and it should behave accordingly. So the veto of Egypt had been raised on this dam, and Ethiopia received a great part of the finance. Now, I'm concentrating on 2 points. The first point is that Egypt should change its strategy towards Ethiopia, because it has to guarantee permanently the water security for Egypt, because Ethiopia now is building one dam. Sudan may think of building other dams. So Egypt would be the prey of these upstream states, and we have to guarantee that water is the first lifeline for the Egyptians, and no security comes before water security. The second is that Egypt has a right, and these rights are guaranteed by international law. The international law in this case is divided in 2 groups. The first group consists of all the 9 agreements which had been concluded, and Ethiopia, in fact, is taking another approach which is violating international law. Ethiopia doesn't regard international law at all. or observe international law. Ethiopia came back to the 19th century doctrines of international rivers. And it says that the water falls on the territorial basin on the territory of Ethiopia, and it runs in the part of the Nile that is in the territory of Ethiopia, and Ethiopia has the right to benefit from this water, and the remaining, after it takes its needs, should be released to the other states. This is not correct. Ethiopia says that the water in the Nile is like the gas and oil, and it is mineral resources. And these natural resources should be exploited by the territorial state. This is wrong, because this argument had been used by Turkey under Demirel in the 1991 against Syria and Iraq, and the international community as a whole rejected this view because this was an instrument for killing the animals and the humans in Syria and Iraq. There is a great difference between the natural resources inside the territory, within the territory of the state, which has full sovereignty on these resources, and the water in the international river, because international law doesn't make any difference between the upstream state and the downstream state. It makes only 8 criteria that should be applied on all the states of the river. Riparianism, this principle had been established since a long time. So Ethiopia, in fact, is violating international law, violating the African ethics, violating the statute or the charter of the African Union, and it is violating the principle of bona fide, or the good intention, or the innocence. Ethiopia proved to be perpetrating for the killing of the Egyptian people as a collective genocide. So I appeal for the international community to stop Ethiopia from continuing in this crime, though the Egyptian government takes a very lenient approach. I don't believe that the Egyptian government is with Ethiopia. And the evidence of this is that the Egyptian government declared, President Sisi himself declared, that the negotiations with Ethiopia reached deadlock. And he appealed for the international community before the General Assembly of the United Nations since some weeks that Egypt needs the support of international community for the life and death of the acts of Ethiopia. So I am, in fact, joining President Sisi in appealing for the international community in all languages to stand for their responsibility and to force Ethiopia to respect international law. And for the Africans, they should have this community of interest in all the African continents, especially President Sisi is the president of the African Union now. This is not a prize for Egypt, being the president of the African Union, to kill the Egyptian people under the name of Ethiopian dominance or Ethiopian prevalence on international law. We need simply to stop Ethiopia from continuing the crime of genocide. And if I were irresponsible in Egypt, I would take the Ethiopians before the ICC, International Criminal Court, because this is not a legal act. This is a criminal act. And it is not a negotiation for stopping the crime. It is a negotiation for mitigating the effects of the crime. If I see the criminal with the weapon and is coming and intentionally for over many years to kill me, this doesn't mean that he is innocent. He is perpetrating, and he has the determination to kill me. I have to stop him. So I appeal for the international community, individuals, states, and societies, and organizations to stand up for their responsibility and to look into the matter seriously, because next year Ethiopia will start what she had made before, and the dam would be ready to receive water, and this water would be in fact decreasing the flow of water to Egypt. And any decrease of the flow of water, because Egypt is marginal state, living on the same quantity which is arriving to it. So if any drop of water is in fact impeded or decreased, this means that many millions of the Egyptians will be starving. So I don't wait for the starvation and the civil war and the chaos in Egypt preluding the disappearance of Egypt to happen. I'm warning the international community. I'm warning the Egyptian government. I'm warning the Arabs, the Africans, and all those who are living at this moment to listen to me and to take up seriously this call and this appeal. We say that God witness that I had revealed everything, and I made my responsibility and I made my effort. Thank you very much.